Our main story this morning, shoppers are facing empty shelves in supermarkets and empty pumps at petrol stations, all thanks to the Pingdemic.
Yeah, it's leading to big staff shortages due to constant self-isolation, and it's taking its toll on the supply chains in this country, right up and down the UK, as retail leaders call increasingly urgently on the government to make exemptions for their workers. It's coming from all sides now. Joining us now is the Business Secretary, Kwasi Kwarteng. Look, this so-called Pingdemic, Mr. Kwasi, I mean, it's breaking down the supply chain in this country as we speak. I mean, in my local supermarket yesterday, there were a lot of empty shelves of the kind that I haven't seen for quite a long time. There are even fears that petrol and diesel supplies, the garages, could soon be affected. We'll see queuing, we'll see panic buying. It's a major breakdown. Why don't you simply recognise what's happening, that the Pingdemic is having this unlooked-for effect, and bring forward the lifting of restrictions and regulations from August the 15th, when if you've been double jabbed, you don't have to isolate, you just have to do a quick test in the morning. Why don't you bring that forward now? Because we've got a crisis on.
I think there is a lot of pressure. I don't see it's a universal issue in terms of shortages. I mean, you went to your supermarket yesterday. I went to my local one and didn't have a problem buying things, but clearly it is a matter of concern. And look, we right from the start of this process, we wanted to have a roadmap. We got the roadmap out. We stuck broadly to it. 21st of June obviously lapsed. And the last date in this process is the 16th of August, and I'm very keen that we stick to that date in terms of self-isolation.
Well, forgive me, you might not be suffering shortages, but you obviously don't go to Iceland, because Richard Walker, Iceland's boss, was saying on the programme that he is so concerned about staff who are having to self-isolate because they've been pinged, even though they may well be negative. He's having to hire 2,000 extra staff, which many businesses certainly couldn't do, in order to keep the food coming in. And he showed us pictures of his shelves that are empty because of problems with drivers, because of problems with people to stack them. And it's not just that, is it? It's police now saying that they are having delays in attending emergency calls. We've heard from paramedics this morning who are very concerned about the shortages of staff there. It's across the board. And BP, as Richard mentioned, has said they're having to look at their supply and close potentially some petrol stations. So why haven't we got this list that we were expecting? What is the delay?
So we're talking about two things here. I mean, obviously the date of the 16th of August, we're very fixed on, and people should self-isolate if they're pinged. In terms of the guidance, we have got guidance coming out, and it's about different sectors where people may be exempt from the rule to self-isolate. But it's going to be quite a narrow range of sectors. It'll be a narrow range of people that will be affected, so people shouldn't anticipate that they will necessarily be exempt from this.
Is there any chance you could tell us that now, so that those people could plan?
I'm not going to come on your show and tell you exactly what is going to be in this thing that's going to be published.
Today?
That will be published soon. It'll come out very soon.
Listen, with great respect, it sounds to me, you're speaking in very measured terms, but it sounds to me as if you're completely detached from what's happening out here.
I'm not detached
Well,
at
you
all.
sound it. I'm sorry, sir, but you sound detached. You sound detached in the same way, for example, it's all part of a piece. We saw the Prime Minister at the weekend having to do an excruciating U-turn because he was completely out of touch with public opinion on the question of isolation. He thought that he could excuse himself with this so-called pilot scheme, and the Chancellor. And within 2 hours, they had to do a U-turn because they were out of touch. We had the same thing happening 3 weeks ago with Matt Hancock, who the Prime Minister, again, totally out of touch with public opinion, thought that it was OK for Matt Hancock to stay in post. And then, of course, the guy had to resign the next day because of the avalanche of criticism. And then on Monday, we had a Prime Minister telling us that he was going to sack him anyway. I mean, it was ridiculous. And listening to you talk, and you're being very calm, and you're being very measured, you don't seem to be connecting with the reality that people are experiencing right now as they go to work and as they go to the shops. You're just talking about an announcement soon, and that we stick to August the 16th. Well, why not bring August the 16th forward? We've got a crisis on.
It's a difficult situation. You wouldn't be very respectful if I came in and was to your programme and was extremely agitated and excited. We've got to be very calm about this. It's a difficult situation. We've got to look at the evidence, and we've got to be as clear as we can, as I always have been, have tried to be, about what the rules are, and acknowledge it is difficult. We're not out of touch. I speak to business leaders, I speak to people, employees, the whole time. As business secretary, you can imagine, my day is completely packed. with conversations and meetings. I'm going to Sheffield today. I'll be in Bolton next week. I can see what's happening. It's difficult. But what I've got to do is be measured, as you say, and take clear lines. And some of those lines are difficult. They're difficult for people to adhere to them, because we have been in a very stressful situation
but you haven't
with
said
the pandemic.
One thing, you haven't said one thing in the entire interview so far about precisely what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. All we've had is soon, and that you're sticking to August the 16th. You haven't explained why you're sticking to August the 16th. So let me ask you directly, why don't you bring that deadline forward so we can get out of this mess that we're in this morning? So
all through this period, we've had fixed dates which we've generally stuck to. The 21st of June we didn't, and it was a matter of regret to me that we couldn't do what we said we would on the 21st of June. On the 19th of July, we've eased restrictions, and now on the 16th of August, I've said this again, and I'll do it again if I have to. The 16th of August will be the date. Now, I get the pressures to move the date forward, to shift the policy, but I think it's really important that we stick to what we've said we would, while actually being flexible enough to look at the situation as it is. And we'll try and look to see how we can mitigate, the difficulties that people are facing. But you've got to be calm in this position. You've got to look at the evidence, and you've got to, try and be unswayed in a way by knee-jerk responses. What's happened, Richard, is that whatever we did, there are some people who think we should have locked down forever, or for at least another 5 or 6 months. There are other people who think we should have brought forward the easing of the restrictions. What the government is doing is taking a balanced approach, measured, as you say, and trying to weave a path through this.
OK, well, look, the other subject that people are very exercised about this morning that isn't entirely unrelated is 3% for nurses. We've had nurses this morning say, what are nurses worth for the government? 3% is expected to be below the rate of inflation, which is thought to be, next time when it comes out, 3.7%. We know it's going up and up. That means that ministers are knowingly cutting pay for experienced nurses by more than £200 in real term. Now, you've improved it from 1%. You've taken that independent review and taken their advice, but they're still getting a pay cut. People feel emotionally that's got to be wrong. Why do you not feel that emotion? Why have you decided not to do it?
So, Kate, you're quite right. It started off at 1%, and there was a degree of outrage and concern about that. And we said we would look to the independent pay review and we would follow their guidance. They came back with a 3% figure, and that's what we've decided to stick to. And across this period, it's been a really, really difficult time. You've got millions and millions of people who are on furlough, who essentially were being paid by the government. The government spent £350 billion in a year supporting the economy. The public finances are under great pressure. You've got many people in the private sector who've been lost their jobs or had taken substantial pay cuts. And we're in this situation.
To be fair, Mr. Kwasi, I have to say that I put all those exact points to the nurses, and their comeback was, look, we are losing nurses. We are losing staff at a rate of knots. People have lost their lives trying to save everybody else through this. It cannot be right that the result of it is a pay cut. How can you live with that?
Firstly, I don't think it's a pay cut because we don't know what the inflation figure is. I think the 3%,
it's going up, don't we?
The 3% figure, as I said, was an independent. And as I've pointed out, we're under huge pressure in terms of public spending, in terms of finding the money to pay for these wage increases. And you have a world, as business secretary, I'm very familiar with this, where businesses are going companies are going out of business, job losses are happening. There's incredible pressure in the economy, and in that context, I think the 3% figure is a reasonable one.
And there we have to leave it. Thank you very much for your time. I have to say, I don't know if you're a betting man, but I wouldn't mind betting you, if we were in a pub together, that there might be some kind of U-turn on this whole question of the Pingdemic in the next 24 hours. But I could be wrong.
We'll see.
We'll see. Absolutely. I'll bet you a quid.